Guess what we saw today? What did we see, guys?
A Quiet Place.
No, I've already seen that twice, though.
We saw Avengers Infinity War. And so we're going to talk about it for this month's movie roundtable.
Who are you?
I'm Victoria.
I'm Grant.
I'm Josh.
Woo! And we're Screen14 Pictures. And always we start with 2 caveats at the top. And they are...
We're not professional movie critics. These are our opinions. We like to talk about stories, things that we like, things that we could think of in a different way, but they're just our opinions. You may disagree, you may not.
2.
Huge, major spoilers. I'm gonna say it again, major spoilers. Right now, if you have not seen Avengers Infinity War, turn this thing off and go see it. Do not watch this until you've seen it. Huge, incredible, major spoilers.
Ta-da! All right, let's start.
Well, I guess I'll take this one. Josh and I have classically been avoiding all trailers, graphics, stills, billboards as much as possible. So we went in completely blind. Victoria, how about you?
I watched the trailers because I've decided that I think I enjoy films more when I kind of know what I'm anticipating. Like, I have something to anticipate instead of going in blind, because then I feel like I'm focusing so much on just like understanding what's happening that I don't enjoy the nuances of the characters as much. So...
And you feel like a trailer gives you like a tonal preview?
Yeah, it gives me an idea of what to expect a little bit. Like Thor Ragnarok is a very different movie than the first Thor or the second Thor. And seeing those trailers helped me understand what I was getting myself into. And my memory is so bad that I typically don't recall any of the major plot spoiler things. Like, we've already done our spoiler alert. As I saw Gamora on the ground, I realized that shot of her laying down is in the trailer, but I did not remember that it's in the trailer.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's a big...
Don't know if there's blood in the trailer, but there's her like laying down.
We'll get to that in just a second. I wanted to start with that because this is the second time I've really enjoyed a movie-going experience because I went in blind. The first was Force Awakens. This one, I knew nothing. The movie unfolded in real time for me without any expectation or advance warning, and I loved it. I loved it.
I'm over here like cheerleading. Like,
It's like, yeah, that's the
It was great. The movie picks up right where Thor Ragnarok's cutscene leaves off, just like right away, like into the thick of it. This movie lets you know that it's not going to pull any punches. The Asgardian remnant from the planet has been decimated. Thor and Loki and Thanos scene up, incredible drama, and some people die at the top.
through like 3 minutes in.
You see Valkyrie dead on the ground in the opening shot.
Pretty sure it's her. Agent 23 or whatever her name was.
The unnamed.
Scrapper 23.
Not only that, but then we go right into setting up the power of Thanos. We have Hulk assaulting him, and we realize that Thanos can just easily deal with Hulk, and Hulk has fear in his eyes. Heimdall, as one last effort, opens the Bifrost and sends Hulk back to Earth, and then gets killed. Sword through the chest.
Heimdall does. Heimdall gets killed.
Heimdall, not Hulk.
Right.
He's safely spirited away to Earth.
But they've already seen the movie, so...
But right after that, we lose
Loki.
The God of Mischief.
Guys, this movie starts by killing 2 named characters who've been along for the ride for quite a while, and a fan favorite in Loki. And I thought that just sets the tone for the film. Like, this is a movie, like I said, it's not going to pull any punches about war and loss.
It sets it straight up like, hey, we're going to lose some people that you like. So, you know, from the beginning, though I kind of assumed that going into this, I think we all did, and we all kind of made bets in our head who was going to die. Yeah. I figured we would definitely lose Iron Man because he's been around for so long. And as I was watching the movie, I was more convinced that we were going to lose Iron Man because it felt like he was kind of handing the reins over to Doctor Strange. And
well, he ignites Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And so it's very symbolic. Like, he does it kind of in like a comical way,
right.
But like everything's set up there for like old generation, new generation.
Yeah. So I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised that we didn't lose Iron Man, who did you guys think we would lose?
I thought we were going to lose Cap.
Same. I assumed he was done because we'd already seen Tony's grand sacrifice at the end of Avengers 1. He's already died once in space and he's been revived. So I figured it was Captain America's time.
I assumed that Vision was going to have to die. I didn't know going into the movie whether or not he could survive with or without the stone. I
neither did they.
assumed we were going to lose him. He was either going to be killed for the stone or sacrificed in some way, which turned out to be true.
As long as we're talking about death, I think we just should address the taste the movie leaves in your mouth upon its conclusion. Not only are some main heroes done throughout the film at the top, but Thanos, the big baddie, his whole mission is to purge each planet of half of its population. We're hit over the head with that again and again and again. We understand that's what he's after. And the dude does it. He gets the stones, he snaps his fingers, and half of the Earth's population is gone, like Rapture style, we learn. But not only that, half of our heroes, one by one, we see them vaporize. And it's just so shocking. I think the movie takes a really bold stroke to finish with the lowest of low points as our Avengers and the people that they've met, especially the people that they've met along the way, are just gone. And that's where we end. And so they're so smart to set up the second film that will come out next year. We just need to know what happens because almost all the Guardians are gone.
Except for Rocket, yeah.
Except for Rocket.
The super popular Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, T'Challa, he gone.
Gone, but I don't think any of us assume that they're actually all gone.
And why is that? Why are they not all gone?
We looked on the slate, and upcoming we have an Ant-Man movie, which he wasn't in this movie. We have a Captain Marvel movie, which we haven't been introduced to her yet. Another Spider-Man Homecoming sequel.
Guardians 3.
And Guardians 3. So if they want to keep this intact, potentially we could have a new Spider-Man. That's always a possibility. And we were introduced to Sylvester Stallone's Guardians at the end of Guardians 2. So a case could be made where this is permanent and we're going to be moving forward with different characters. I think we feel like that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
In true comic book fashion, there's probably going to be some kind of undo where we bring back, the people who have been killed, like Loki and Heimdall, will stay dead. But likely the disintegrating people will be resurrected in some way.
It's true. And even though Thanos has all the stones, I think the pivotal moment in the movie for me is when Stephen Strange has a kind of meditative seizure and lets people know that he's gone into the future and has seen all possible, according to him, all possible eventualities, 14,605,000. And there's one in which they are victorious against Thanos. And at the top of the movie, he lets Stark know that he'll go with him, but he will not hesitate to let Stark or Spider-Man die if it means that he can save the stone that he's charged with protecting. However, he spares Stark's life.
He 180s. He completely reverses course.
So I think we're on that timeline.
That would have to be the only reason that he would do that, is he is doing his part in what he believes is the one outcome where we don't all die.
Yeah, he's the keeper of the time stone in the Eye of Agamotto on that relic around his neck, and everybody's after it. It's one of the main MacGuffins. And Thanos actually spears Iron Man through, and Strange says, spare his life, I'll give you the stone.
Hey, bargains.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain. Wow. Okay, death. You had a good point about one of your favorite sort of through lines through the film.
One of my favorite things in the film is the theme of sacrifice, what you're willing to sacrifice for whatever your goal is. So we kept seeing different people having to make a choice about saving another person's life. For Vision and Scarlet Witch, that had a huge impact on the film. Mm-hmm. Scarlet Witch wanted to save Vision, wanted to keep Vision alive, even when Vision said, you need to destroy me. We also had that with Gamora and Star-Lord, aka Peter Quill.
Gamora and Nebula.
Gamora and Thanos. Gamora
a lot of
was
Gamora,
just destined to die. But Doctor Strange with Iron Man and Spider-Man, he said, I will not hesitate to sacrifice you, and then he doesn't. And so throughout the movie, it's people negotiating each other's lives.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating, and I think really cool that they were able to have such a strong thread and theme in this film. Something that unified a lot of the relationships when this film was so large.
Sprawling.
And sprawling that I thought it was great how they wrote that in.
Yeah, I was thinking about this on the way home. We saw this movie like 2 hours ago. Yeah. So it's like
VV fresh.
Super fresh. But I was thinking about this on the way home and how Thanos' sacrifice is kind of in his corner. And I was thinking about how it's kind of pitted against Cap, like we don't trade lives. Yes. And I feel like if it's anybody's movie, I think it's Thanos' movie. But I think Cap is solidified in my mind as our main character because we get his opposite view, his opposing view. We don't trade lives versus sacrifice. And he is the last one when Scarlet Witch is trying to destroy the stone in Vision's head. We get this extended shot of him like on the gauntlet, struggling with all of his might against Thanos, and he's the last one to be discarded. And I feel like that is going to be something that plays into the follow-up movie and those like opposing ideas where, you know, I will sacrifice the many for the rest, and Cap's like, we will not lose one life.
See, that's really interesting that you said that because I felt like Captain America got really lost in the film. Not lost as a character, but lost as in there were so many characters that we were dealing with. I didn't feel like he had much of a journey, nor was he at the forefront.
I agree with that. I think we've spent a lot of time on him in Civil War, but I did note that final visual in that Cap, as the de facto leader of the Avengers, is throwing down with Thanos mano a mano, like literally hand to hand, whereas everyone else has proximity means of fighting. It's just brute, it's raw, it's a guy trying to get a guy's glove off, like trying to tear him from his source of power. And I agree that there's so many characters. It's definitely not one person's film, but I do think that those two ideals come to a head at the end, and it's sending us into a more clearly defined journey for the second half, I imagine.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's really well put, that he is not necessarily the protagonist of the film, but he represents the opposing view to Thanos, which this was his film, right?
Yeah,
like
it kind of has to be. And even at the end, like the only thing we get is Thanos will return.
Yeah, we don't know about anybody else.
Maybe it'll just be 2.5 hours of him in a cottage enjoying a sunrise.
With his rusty old gauntlet.
I read a review ahead of time of the film that was a...
What?
I know, guys.
Wait, before we saw it?
Nerdist released a spoiler-free review that talked about the film without giving you any details about it. It's actually pretty well written. You guys would hate it because it even has the name of the film in it.
Well, I'll read it now.
But I thought it was interesting because it talked about how the critic reacted to the film and said, I never thought that I could ever sympathize at all with Thanos, but this movie did a good job in helping me understand what he's trying to do. So I went into this movie expecting to have some scenes with Thanos to really beef him up, but this film, it was Thanos' film.
Heavily point of view in his side.
Which is great in that it makes him a really intimidating and more nuanced character than I ever expected him to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially given some of the more comic book-esque moments that we've had with him in some of the previous films or in the tag scenes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. To your point of sacrifice, the whole journey of Thanos was my favorite takeaway from the film. It was the thing that I walked out with mulling over, and I expected to not enjoy Thanos because of those after-credit scenes where we first get to see him, the smirk over the shoulder, the purple face, the fine, I'll do it myself. I thought it was all a little over the top, and I expected to not enjoy it, but we spent so much time with him, and we understand that while genocide is bad, Thanos is very logical, and that overpopulation is a real concern, and he thinks that if you can thin the herd and do it randomly, 50% of every population dies, the other 50% enjoys a more fruitful existence, and we get an emotional journey for him. We get to see that he has real and true feelings for Gamora. We also spend a lot of time on his face. You can see he's got like a 5 o'clock shadow. He's humanized in a way that I never expected. And we understand that he views his cause as righteous and that he's doing the work that he's supposed to do to make the universe better. And anytime a villain views himself to be the hero in their own story, their journey is more compelling, and I think it makes for a stronger story.
That's what the critic said. He expected to go into the film, see Thanos, this purple, big comic book looking character. Fred Durst. And he said that the movie made him so human that he was no longer just this thing. He was a nuanced character and like an actual being. It gave him flesh, not only in like a character sense, but also in a weight sense, you know?
Yeah.
And if you've watched our Justice League review, you understand that this is something that comic book movies often deal with to a less effective degree. The Steppenwolf villain just comes across as weightless and aimless and purposeless because he's not grounded and we don't understand what he wants or why he wants it.
Yeah, just one-dimensional. Something that I thought was really interesting is that of all of the villains we've seen so far in the MCU, he's not the most powerful by himself. Even in Phase 3, we've faced Dormammu, who is essentially like the most powerful being, I guess, in existence or non-existence. I don't know. We faced off with Ego, who's a god that wants to also take over the universe. Thanos is described, I think, in Guardians as a warlord. Like, so he's kind of like maybe a minor dude that...
But a Titan.
But a Titan who gets these stones and then becomes arguably the most powerful being in the universe. But I think to your point, I can't identify with Dormammu. And he wasn't the main villain of that story anyway, but...
Cosmic cloud that doesn't just speak to you?
Yeah, and so... And even Ego, in a certain sense, I can't really identify with him. With Thanos, we get the FaceTime with him, and we get the fact that he hasn't started with this power.
Yeah.
He has amassed it, and he knows what he wants to do with it. And so, like you were saying with Steppenwolf, who's a one-dimensional character, like it was like a slight, and he wants to come back and destroy Earth or something like that.
I think so.
Whereas with Thanos, well, I wasn't emotionally moved. Like, I'm not emotionally moved by his reasoning. Like, I see that there is reasoning and I understand it. And the FaceTime that we got with him gives him more of a three-dimensional sense where I can see him and not just hate him because I'm told he's bad.
And you had a minor gripe, which I think bears repeating. We understand that the logic that underpins Thanos' motivation is that he saw the fall of his homeworld Titan coming. And he proposed this idea of killing half the population, and he was branded a madman, and rightfully so. But it happened anyway when they didn't heed his warning. And you were saying maybe you would like to have known a little bit more of how he got to that.
To me, that's not like a planetary
purge.
Like, that's not like deeply personal.
Emotionally resonating.
Yeah, to me it would be more like if it was his immediate family, like he was branded a madman and exiled from his planet, his homeworld or something. 'Cause that to me was like a kind of a simple explanation of a very complex problem. And that to me, I didn't identify with that because I don't speak for a planet.
Yet.
All that to say, like, I understand his journey. I wasn't as emotionally moved by it as I think I could have been. But again, it's a minor gripe. This villain in this movie is one of the best villains in any movie I think I've ever seen.
And I do think that that's because they took their time.
Michael B. Jordan in Black Panthers.
Killmonger, yeah.
They took their time explaining his perspective. The movie is about his collection of the stones. Mm-hmm. And we've seen it before, you need to collect these relics of power. But we've spent so much time with these stinking stones for the last 10 years, over 18 films. We've tracked their journey. People have made timelines and maps, and you did it with the characters. Like, we've had 10 years of cinematic moments that coalesce and collide in this crossover. And the movie is so much to process. It is these meetings of different characters who we know, but they don't know each other. So we have to take the time for them to understand who they are to each other. And they don't know who's with Thanos and who's against Thanos, and there's some fun to be had there. There's a lot of introductions of characters in the film and a lot of different settings as well. From Scotland to space, we saw several different planets, and we got a giant Peter Dinklage introduced as the last of a celestial breed of dwarves who run a smelting forge powered by a star.
In the heart of a dying star.
So it's all over the place in the best way. I have to see it again just to understand the geography of it all.
Yeah, well, and this is a movie where, like you said, we have had 18 films to build up to this in 10 years, and this is not a standalone movie.
No, it's so confusing.
You have to see the other movies, and I'm glad they didn't try to serve both masters by this. Like, this is for the people who have been following the journey from the beginning, and even if you haven't been following from the beginning, you've at least seen all of the movies, and so you go into this movie and you are like in the back half of the book, and if you don't know what's going on, that's on you, and I'm really glad.
Do you think you have to see every single one?
You don't have to.
Because like Ant-Man, that's not going to be a movie that you need. I mean, obviously this movie is much more enjoyable if you see every single one and you're familiar with these characters, because you don't have a lot of time with these characters. Everybody gets their scenes, but
Ant-Man in
Yes.
particular, you don't need to see because he's not in this one.
Right.
But having that backstory, at least for me, I watched every movie in the MCU, save Black Panther, in the last 30 days. And having that history... Having that history and that backstory like refreshed and seeing things in quasi chronological order was super helpful to me. And I went in and I knew characters, I knew names, I knew things they were referencing. That coupled with the complete cut off of trailers and everything, like aside from maybe Force Awakens and maybe not even that, like it was one of the best movie going experiences I've had because I was versed in all of the lingo and I didn't know what was coming, but I knew what to expect.
I would say you probably don't have to have watched every film in the last month, but you definitely would want to know Avengers, probably Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, Civil War, and
Doctor Strange.
Yeah, if you don't
Guardians
understand Doctor
one.
Strange, he's a big player now. Guardians are important. In fact, without the Guardians, I think this film loses a lot of its levity. I think that we get to see that trademark music come up and we realize that, oh my gosh, the Guardians are on the scene now. And when our Thor, or representative of the main Avengers, meets the Guardians, fireworks happen. It's silly. It's fun. It's everything the Guardians do for a movie they bring to this movie. And without it, it's a lot of heavy hitting. It's a big, loud, fun popcorn film, though. And if you don't know the world or the characters as well, you're still going to have a lot of fun because it's got some unbridled action and some emotional beats that should resonate even if you don't understand how each character relates to the stones or to each other. You will only have that experience enhanced if you are familiar, because we've started producing works recently, and to look at what they have been able to achieve in a decade, I think is remarkable. Whether you like comic book movies or not, and I know a lot of people, they think, oh, it's just cookie cutter and it's just loud, flash in the pan, but it's not a flash in the pan. They've been around for so long now. Yeah. What they're doing is telling a complex story over dozens of hours of mass-produced, high-quality entertainment, and they have the biggest stars in our generation all playing these parts again and again and again, and these parts have made them the biggest stars. Yeah. So they would do well to keep coming back for more, but it's so fun to see the three Chris's together, in Chris Pratt, Chris Evans, and Chris Hemsworth. I almost said Pine. Sorry, buddy, not yet. And this is just the first half of this sprawling movie that they already shot. What did you think at the end, Josh? You thought it was going to be more encapsulated?
Not having known what the movie was, not seeing trailers, and knowing that about a year ago they had taken the part 1 and part 2 off of these two Avenger movies in 2018, 2019, I figured that the Infinity Stone story was going to be wrapped up in this one. So when we cut to credits, I was like, play the rest of the movie. We're not even close to being done yet.
And this is at the 2 hour and 30 minute mark. He wanted more.
Let's go. And I thought it was really interesting, and I think I love it, the super classic credits. In all of the Marvel movies, we have the like super CG where it's like part of the movie and we're seeing all of this imagery. It was black background, white text.
Well, I think tonally it wants a more traditional approach because, like we mentioned before, where we cut the film is the lowest of lows. Everyone's friends are disappearing. It is like the Marvel Cinema Universe rapture, and they don't know what to do. They don't know what's happening, except it all dawns on them bit by bit. Thanos has done it. He's got all the stones. He's achieved his ultimate goal, and where do we go from here? And to do that, to have bouncy, musical, fun, flashy credits, I think would do a disservice to the emotional heft that they deliver.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think it was the right choice. It was just, I don't know that we've seen a Marvel movie do that, at least in the last like 5 years. Even in Civil War, I mean, that was a pretty heavy movie, and we saw our team get split apart, but even then we have graphics and imagery on the end of that. So I liked the choice. I thought it was good.
Moving away from that, what did you guys think about who we saw and who we didn't see? I'll say that I expected more cameos. I expected cameos maybe from Coulson, who survives in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. I expected maybe a flash of a Defender, like maybe we'd see Jessica Jones briefly or a Daredevil. I was hoping, since they acquired Fox, that we would get Logan in there or Professor Xavier. or something, even if they weren't part of the core team, but we had a cameo. I especially expected to see Miss Marvel as a cameo.
Oh, you did.
And like a precursor like they did with Black Panther.
Yeah. Even in the first Avengers movie, we have Ashley Johnson is interviewed like on camera and talking about Captain America or something or another. And I expected something like that with Miss Marvel, like in a credit scene, instead of it just being Nick Fury sending her a message, which I think that's what's happening there.
I think so too.
I expected to see her in her element. I'm not super familiar with her, but like in a kitchen or in an office or whatever she does. I don't know what she does, but doing it, and we just like see her catch the news or something.
I could see that happening, but not knowing anything about her. If that symbol that we see at the end, as we slowly zoom into what looks like a
pager,
jerry-rigged pager,
yeah.
If that's her, I'm on board. Like, I'm hooked. I'm so interested in what that means that I want to see Captain Marvel as soon as possible, just to know. And so
instead of actually seeing her, you want to see the.
I'm more interested in seeing her movie because of the mystery of that. It was such a nice tease to me. If I would have seen, I think I could buy it like in a cutscene with her, but I almost like just the promise of her story more than even seeing her.
Well, the implications there. Fury and Maria Hill are driving through New York City. They hear that Stark is off the grid, and the one person he wants to call is Miss Marvel. That means she is a big deal. To me, that says that she's gonna she is gonna come in and save the day.
So much credibility. We think it's Miss Marvel. It looks like her uniform.
It's also the next movie that's coming out.
It's not the next film, but it's the second up next after Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, we're gonna see her movie before we see the fourth Avengers movie. And my hope is, back to your original question, is we still do have that possibility to see mutants or to see the Defenders. I would have loved. I was also expecting to see some X-Men in there because, come on, what addition could make this incredible movie series legendary is to like throw Wolverine in there? Like, people would lose their minds.
I think
if Wolverine had shown up in Wakanda. Just, I mean, could you do it in a film without introducing him ever? Just have him show up? That'd be a bold stroke.
I mean, to me, the way that you could do it is like, now that we're on the ropes, like humanity is in a bad way. If we somehow put out the call like, hey, anybody out there, enhanced individuals, like, we need your help. I could see that being like, even in a montage where it's like, hey, in New Orleans, this guy, in New York, in Los Angeles. And like, we see in Hell's Kitchen the Defenders for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like,
I expected that.
I would be over the moon about that.
I don't know how it would have fit with this film, and so I understand why they didn't do it, because this film is not, honestly, it's not the fun and games that the first Avengers movie is.
All the chickens coming home to roost.
Yeah, and that first Avengers movie, even though we get that sacrifice from Iron Man, which is beautiful, and we have the interplay between Loki and Thor, which is so fun, the battle itself is beautiful and fun to watch. And you have that hero shot that Joss Whedon is kind of famous for with the Avengers. We don't have that in this film. In fact, I would say that the battles here are more brutal than a lot of the other battles that we've seen.
And frenetic.
It feels more violent, even though it probably isn't. It felt the deaths had more weight. And
there are deaths.
People could potentially die. Heroes could potentially die.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if we could have that same level of, quote, fun in the battle.
Sure.
I agree that it would have been, I think people everywhere were clamoring for a Wolverine cameo. And it could be forthcoming. If they really did shoot them together and finish them in the past, there might not have been time after a Fox.
Give me a post-credit scene.
That would be some substantial reshoots to integrate people. I like the idea of the cameo, but I'm still coming back to the fact that there are probably 20 named characters in this film.
Yeah.
And they are doing...
We didn't even get Hawkeye.
Well, yeah. Back to who we didn't see.
And Ant-Man.
Yeah, Hawkeye and Ant-Man are not in the movie.
They are written off because they're off the grid. They're decommissioned for the safety of their families. And we have to accept...
By choice, their choice.
I think that maybe they'll crop up in the second half, but we don't see them. And I think the movie does a pretty good job of balancing all of its characters, much like the first Avengers. Every Avenger in that first movie has important things to do and real emotional stakes and journeys. And that was done with 5 or 6 characters. So now this movie has blown that wide open, and we have all of these multiple teams that we have to balance. So our main focus is on Earth and on Titan, and I think they do a pretty good job. Also on Star Killer Birth, like the birth of a star.
Well, Nowhere, and then the name of the planet that I can never understand.
So the movie is excellent in keeping all of these characters involved in things that are important because there are several stones to protect, and Thanos one by one is just picking these up and adding them to his gauntlet of power. I have to see it again, like I mentioned before, because there's so many moving pieces and the geography is all over the cosmos now. That's why I think the first scene that cuts away when we get the Chiron in there, it just says the location is space, and everybody in our theater laughed, and I was like, it's true. Like, this movie is now intergalactic and multidimensional.
Yeah.
I actually expected a lot more space.
Really?
More Titan?
Yes. I didn't expect the battle to come to Earth so much as I kind of expected fish out of water. All of our heroes are taken to the sky.
Interesting.
And we're fighting Thanos
3 of them were.
in the air, in the space. It would have been a completely different film if they'd done that. But that's kind of what I expected.
That's interesting that you expected that. It makes sense to me. But even when 3 heroes were unwittingly pulled into space on one of Thanos' crafts, I was like, oh my gosh, Iron Man's going to fight on another planet.
They're separated now.
Tony Stark and Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, they're fighting on another planet, not in New York. And I thought it was really smart that we landed finally back into the world of Wakanda. And obviously Black Panther has done so well for Marvel and for Disney this year that I think it was great that the central battle was located not in New York. I've
we
seen it
all
before.
care about Wakanda.
But Wakanda is so fresh and so new. And when we introduced that musical theme, the Black Panther theme, I'm like, oh yeah, we're back!
Wakanda forever!
We were just here and I want to go back again. And so that big Earth battle location I thought was nice and new in Wakanda. But I could see more space.
No.
We saw like at least 3-4 different space locations.
It is not based on trailers. It's not based on anything except for it's called Infinity War. And Infinity doesn't make me think of Earth. It makes me think of space and time and out of here. And the last thing that we saw was Thor headed to Earth. So I kind of expected him to pick up heroes and be like, hey guys, we're got Thanos to deal with. And so they all leave and go together. And it would be much more like a really crazy big Brady Bunch episode in like a spaceship going after Thanos.
In the car on the way here, you mentioned that you see movies for relationships.
I do.
And that you already...
Not just relationships.
Yeah, but you care about the character. You want to care about your characters.
Yeah.
And you did mention that this movie is not as much fun. It's a lot more heavy and a lot more loss. How did you think it handled relationships through that war story that it has to tell?
I mean, I think they tried really hard, and I think they did a really good job trying to create character moments between different people, like Vision and Scarlet Witch. Are they my favorite characters in the MCU? No. Do I find the age difference a little creepy? Yes. That
What she
being
means to
said-
say is Vision is 3 years old. He's a toddler. She is Cougar Town.
I think that's exactly what she means.
100%. That being said, do I care about them even as much as I care about other characters? No, I would much rather have seen even more like Steve and Bucky, probably, if I'm being honest. But because he is an Infinity Stone, he's an important character, and so it's nice that he has somebody with whom he connects.
And I really did appreciate that they said Vision is evolving, and so Paul Bettany finally gets out of maroon makeup to play himself, the pale, blonde-haired, blue-eyed person to whom I'm often compared. And I like that because we see that they really do have a connection, and even though he is AI, she's also supernatural, so they love each other, and he makes her promise to kill him in the end so that Thanos doesn't get the stone that drives his consciousness. In the same way, Gamora makes Peter Quill promise to kill her so that the information that she has is not taken by Thanos Thanos so that he can decimate the universe. And all of these people who love each other are having to promise to end each other. And you're right. I think that in those ways, the relationships worked. I was really floored by the whole Gamora-Thanos connection that was expanded. And I really bought into the Gamora-Nebula relationship after rewatching Guardians 2 earlier this week. I like that she really feels for this sister. They've always been super competitive, but at the end of Guardians 2, she understands that they both mutually hate their dad so much. They need to love each other and not transfer the hate from their dad to each other for pitting them against one another. And I thought that the people that ended up passing, they did a nice job sending them off with real and honest emotional storylines.
Yeah, I mean, Loki even had a nice bit with Thor when he was going toward, I don't know, there was like a shared look or something between Loki and Thor, which was a nice sibling thing.
I think he cast him a look on Son of Odin, as they both recognized their father, their relation to their father.
He has kind of gone back and forth on like how he's not actually Odin's son, but like when it kind of comes down to it, that's who he identifies with, which is important. In terms of relationships, I also was like, Vision is an Infinity Stone, so we have to kind of focus on him. I felt like Winter Soldier and like Falcon maybe got the short end of the stick. That was a relationship that we saw in Civil War that I thought was kind of fun, and I was looking forward to maybe a little more of that. And Steve and Bucky when they get reunited, because he saw him go into ice at the end of Civil War and hasn't seen his friend for a year or two. So yeah, we did some of the supporting storylines were kind of lost in the mix. Right, the movie is 2.5 hours, so we can't explore everything, but there are a lot of webs there that would be interesting to look at in this context.
And they opened up new relationships or kind of explored some relationships that they've established. Like, I think it was really interesting to see Stark with Peter Parker, kind of that father-son relationship. That was the one that I think I connected with the most as a female who doesn't have any children. But what I mean to say is I resonated with it, and that's the one that brought me the closest to actually maybe potentially crying at all, was when Peter Parker is just like crying against Iron Man
as he's disintegrating.
That was the part that I was just like, oh, that hit me. But I missed there were jokes, but I missed some of the fun of seeing some of these characters that I have grown to love and appreciate getting to play together. It was a lot of characters meeting one another. And while Thor and Rocket were fun, I haven't been aching to see a Thor and Rocket movie. I've been aching to see like Thor interacting with the Guardians who are interacting with, Iron Man. I want to see them all together. And I'm interested to see Iron Man and Captain America interact again, because where we left them was not great. And so all of these people that I don't feel like we've progressed a lot of those stories, and we still have them. I'm hoping that they're keeping those lines open for future and not just like, hey, remember all this work that we did?
Well,
I think that payoff's coming.
Yeah.
I think we have to tear everybody apart. The movie is very plot driven as we are defending these different stones. I mean, I think he gets four stones in the movie?
He gets all the...
He had one.
All but one. So
he gets 5
stones. And I kind of feel like it was super easy to get some of those stones.
However, what I mean to say is like we're moving from stone to stone to stone, defense. We have broken apart our main players. They are now across the galaxy defending stones, and they're meeting the intergalactic or the mystical elements that are at play in the Marvel Universe. So our favorites aren't getting to play with their best friends. They're meeting new friends, having to reconcile how they fit together. And I think everything will collapse back together on Earth in the second half.
I think that's the setup here. Like, we've done all of the legwork to get everybody knows everyone's name now. Except for Thor.
He just calls him Rabbit.
So to me, in the 4th Avengers movie, whatever it winds up being called, that's when we're going to have all of these guys coming together. And I feel like my hope is that we do get that payoff where we get to see Cap and Iron Man come back together, and we get to see the Avengers team. And we noted that we are left with essentially the original Avengers at the end of this movie. Yeah. So we'll get to see them, hopefully, as a nucleus before we invite everybody back in undisintegrate and then fight the big battle that we've all been
Presumably,
longing
yeah.
to see.
Well, not everybody's together yet. We have
Right, no.
Tony Stark and
Nebula. Still
on
on
Titan.
Titan.
But everybody else in the universe is in Wakanda, right? We don't have anybody in a far-flung...
Well, wherever Captain
Space.
Marvel is, hope she answers that pager call.
I've talked a lot about the film so far, but I haven't actually expressed whether or not I liked it. I did. I did like the film.
Whoa!
I know. Did you guys like it?
I did. I, again, really want to see it again. I always enjoy movies more, I think, the second time. As I understand the given circumstances, I've processed it, pieced it together, and then I can let the story unfold in a different way upon a second viewing.
And I can give it grace where I know that I need to give it grace from the beginning.
So
Like The Last Jedi, real quick, just putting this in. I liked it a little bit more the second time I saw it. Not like a ton more, but a little more.
No, that's neither here nor there.
That movie was awful.
Did you like it, Josh?
I loved it. I loved it. It's not the type of movie like Avengers 1 where at the end you want to stand up and cheer because it was
No.
just like so fun and so amazing and everything you were hoping it would be. There were moments in this movie that I wanted to cheer, but at the end of the movie it's very solemn, but at the same time like it is fulfilling its promise to me. It's fulfilled part 1 of a 2-part promise and it did it in a way that was nearly flawless. In my swearing off of trailers and things, there are often expectations that are not met. And so going in blind to a movie, it's unfair to the movie because the expectations are so high that what the movie actually is, if we had been prepared for it, we would have adjusted our expectations accordingly. Not the case here. I think Marvel is the only franchise left that I can let my expectations be boundless and it will oftentimes meet those expectations. And it happened here again where it's just the 19th movie in the MCU
19 movies.
and one of the best. I think I can say I want to see it again. It's one I want to own. It was just really well done.
There's so much that could go wrong in this movie. You have to cross over teams of people that you've been developing for a while. And maybe that's a square peg in a round hole. And I trust them at this point. Everything that they're doing, in my opinion, is not cookie cutter. They are taking interesting tones with superheroes that you would never think would make it to the silver screen, like Ant-Man, or I don't know, let's start the franchise off with Iron Man, who I knew nothing about.
Right.
And
Never
now,
would have made it to the silver screen in the past.
never.
The silver screen.
But it works. You say here, your name's going to be in lights.
Picture this.
It
Yes.
doesn't stumble. It's so confidently directed. I love the Russo brothers. I love their comedy work in the past. Love. And they handle the tone of Marvel has become synonymous with fun, action, and humor. But it's underpinned with real story and relationship that I think is the beating heart of the universe. And I think they succeed with flying colors because it made me want to see the movie again, like right away.
Yeah, they
That's what
both
you
try to
want.
convince me right away. Speaking of expectations, you have an idea. You don't. Rotten Tomatoes score. Rot Tom, speak to me. What do you think it is? 252 critics.
252 critics already. 252. Wow. I hope beyond hope that they have this movie at 95% positive reviews.
95. Okay. And what's the last number you heard?
The first and last number I heard was 89.
89.
And my hope is that it is at a 95 as well.
I am really sorry to disappoint you both. 84%.
Really?
Ooh. Now,
Interesting.
to that point, critics, we are deeply invested in this cinematic universe. You just spent a month watching all the films. So this is a movie for us.
Yes.
And it's for us because we're specifically attached to the films. I've never known the comics before the films. So my knowledge of the characters is what they've built in these films. And I think it's a film that's designed for us. And I appreciate it to that end.
I also don't know if you can actually assess and critique this movie independent of the rest of the franchise. And if those critics, if any one of those critics had never seen any Marvel movie before, and this was their first one, I can understand how they might go in there and be like, what? What the heck? I don't know.
I would say maybe recuse yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, 84 is a fine score. That's excellent. It's not the top notch that we've come to expect from films like Black Panther.
Like a 96.
Just crazy high. I could understand that if you don't know or appreciate all the things that have led to this, it might seem like a lot of sound and fury or a hot mess of action and characters. I haven't seen credits with that many actors, primary named characters. And then there was the huge section with all the hairdressers to each of them. I've never seen so many hairdressers and personal makeup artists because they're all stars. They've all headlined films. 84 is good. I had hoped for higher. I think this movie, I think it could catch Black Panther. We'll see. Black Panther was a cultural moment. I think it would do well to catch Black Panther, but I still think it's going to do crazy numbers.
What about audience score? What do you guys think it is?
I think that's probably higher.
I'm gonna double down on 95. I hope.
I would say it's above 90.
Above 90. Do you want to lock in a number?
92.
Because the people that will post right now, I think, are going to be fans. That they want the film. Right. We'll see. 95.
93.
Oh, close. Okay.
That's where we're at. Okay. A little assessment.
Well, it is difficult when it is part one of a two-part
right
movie where we're left with questions. You're not getting that resolution. And so I think that is always going to be something where there will be a group of people that feel unfulfilled or maybe, I don't know if cheated is the right word, but just like they didn't get a whole movie out of it. Whereas like that 2.5 hours for me went by like it was 15 minutes.
It did fly.
I unfortunately had a headache during the film, so it didn't fly for me. I will admit to that.
Oof.
But I had a really good time watching it. And you got a whole movie in the sense that if Thanos is your protagonist, which I would think he is kind of the protagonist of this film.
Yeah, he got his stones. He accomplished his goal.
He had a goal, and he accomplished his goal. And the Avengers, in a lot of ways, are the antagonists. They're trying to stop him the whole time. But it's not the story that you think you're going to go see. Most people, I think, assume you're going to go see the Avengers stopping Thanos.
Yeah, well, especially, I think it's especially acute in the sense that they said that it was no longer Infinity War Part 1 and Infinity War Part 2. To me, that tells me, oh, it's not a two-part movie.
I would say you're in the minority of people, though, who know, like, on the general...
Yeah, we read the trades.
Not everybody knows that.
I think more people would know that than maybe we would think would know that. To me, Marvel is like Star Wars, where, like, people seek out, voraciously consume information.
Oh, definitely.
As much as possible.
Definitely a lot of people did know, but the average viewer who's just going, who might be disappointed in the film,
may not
know that. But tell us, did you know? Did you know that they changed the name from Infinity War Part 1 and 2?
Then I have no misgivings about the fact that we kinda nerdy. I would say...
Oh, not kinda.
I would say
so?
Most people that I will talk to about this movie will be casual Marvel fans. They will have seen the movies, but they won't be able to name the secondary characters. They definitely won't know the Stones or the Stones lore. So
I mean, do you know all the lore?
No, but we've tracked the Stones for a while, and so we can see what the Stones mean to the characters as they come in and out of their possession.
I'm just really excited for Wonder Woman to be in the next one.
Oh man, DC's finally gonna have a win.
Clearly a joke. Clearly.
Did you know it was a joke?
Did you know it was a joke?
Tell us in the comments below.
I had a ton of fun at the movies.
I had a ton of fun at the movies.
I had a great ton of fun at the movies.
And we only saw one movie.
Whoa.
Avengers Infinity War. Not Part 1, just Infinity War.
Infinity War.
Love to know what you thought about it. And Wakanda Forever.
And Earth and space and
Sorry,
time.
this is Mad Max, isn't
and,
it?
Yeah, wrong.
Witness.
Wrong franchise.
Different
here.
W.
Avengers Infinity War.
Assemble!
We'll see you next month.